musical duo Bill Sample and Darlene Cooper. And now to guide us in meditation this morning, Reverend Bob Trask.
Good morning, dear friends. Let's start off our day with a good meditation. Just put our feet flat on the floor, if that's possible, and the lower part of our back up against the back of our chair. And then let's just sit comfortably, breathing in gently through our nose and out gently through our mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you breathe out, just let your body relax. Just let your body fall into a total sense of peace and bliss. So that each time you breathe in the grace of God. You breathe in the light of eternity. And each time you breathe out, you breathe your own special blessing to the world. I would like for you to not think about your breathing. I would like for you to just be aware of it. Not think about it. Just be aware of it. And feel yourself surrounded and filled and protected with the love of the eternal universe creator, Great Spirit. And let me be quiet while we just drift, drift, drift deeper and deeper into peace, deeper into peace. Would you like to feel even more freedom? Would you like to feel free, completely free? Then say to yourself, I am free. Again. Again. And now, if you're able, give yourself over to Holy Spirit, to the great creative mind that is keeping this entire universe in balance. Just give yourself away to that. You don't have to be in control. Just let your control go. And allow yourself to flow with the oneness of the divine. And as you drift in peace and in freedom, can you notice that above the top of your head, maybe 6 to 12 inches, there's a presence above the top of your head. And can you move your consciousness, your awareness into that space? To that consciousness, that sweet, gentle consciousness above the top of your head. Nothing to do, just be. Holy Spirit, great presence, creator of all. We are your children. We are incarnations of you. We each contain all of your wisdom. We each contain all of your love. This day, we acknowledge that you are giving us everything that we need. And we know that when we want something more than what we already have, all we need to do is trust and to know that your unbroken love is guiding and supporting us. We are inside of you now. Dancing in the moonlight, filled with the joy of your presence. We will carry your presence with us in our hearts throughout this service and throughout this day. In great gratitude and joy, we thank you. "60 seconds from now, Bill and Darlene will begin to play their beautiful, beautiful music. That will be our sign to come back to the sanctuary. And when you come back, please bring with you this beautiful spiritual self.
When the world is so dark, it tears you apart. You can't find your way. Well, I just gotta say, remember one thing, you know that won't ever change. Love is gonna win. No, love is gonna win. Oh, love is gonna win. Love. When you feel all alone and think you can't stand, need help to find your way, well, reach out to your friends, take hold of their hands, and stand together and say, love is gonna win. No, love is gonna win. Love, love, love. Love is gonna win. Love. Stand side by side, heart to heart, hand in hand. Stand side by side, heart to heart, hand in hand. Love is gonna win. Love is gonna win. Oh, love is gonna win. Love and love is gonna win. Oh, love is gonna win. Love, love, love. Love is gonna win. Love is gonna win. Oh, yeah. Love is gonna win. Love, love, love. Love is gonna win. Love is gonna win. Oh, yeah.
So again, good morning, good morning, good morning, my dear friends. Beautiful, gorgeous Sunday morning in the Pacific Northwest. We are so blessed. Those of you that are watching from other parts of the world or other parts of the country, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube a week or two or a month after this broadcast, just know that we are living in paradise up here in the Northwest. And wherever you are, I sure hope you feel paradise inside of you. Today we're going to talk about the doorway to love and freedom. The doorway to love and freedom. And it's an interesting topic because what we'll find as we move along through this is that love and freedom have so much to do with each other that they're actually the same thing. Now, those of you who know me know that I'm pretty frequently saying, I love you. And when I say to you, the congregation, or to the watchers here today, I love you, you might say to yourself, he doesn't really mean that. He can't, because he doesn't even know me. But see here, my love for you has nothing to do with how you see yourself. Doesn't really even have anything to do with how others see you. My love for you belongs to me. It's my love. And it's my choice of how I connect it with you. And I give it to you freely because I am free to love. I'm free to love. But you might say, well, that's not really love. Love is knowing someone and coming to understand them and trust them. And I would agree, that's a kind of love. That's presence of love. And so it dwells within each of us as us. But we're each free to be that, to be the great spirit and to give that spiritual love and to give great spirit as us as we will. I hear people say sometimes, I don't believe in God. You know, I just think that we're just people and we live for a while, but I don't really believe in God. Well, I don't blame you. I don't believe in that God either. The God I believe in is the presence, not a guy in the sky, but the divine presence of wisdom and intelligence and creative genius that's holding this entire universe in balance. So, you know, if you can believe not in something called God, there were a lot of gods before Abraham found the God that they now call Father. There was Zeus, and the Greeks had probably hundreds of gods. But if you open your heart and your mind to love freely, then you'll know God. You'll know that invisible, indescribable presence. And I say indescribable because in this dimension, in your body mind, you can't describe God. You can't describe Holy Spirit or Great Spirit. There's no way to describe that because it's everything. It's everything in all places at all times. From the tiniest mote of dust to the great blue whale to the whole universe of the planets and galaxies. It's all one, and it's God. And so if you love completely and totally and unconditionally, then I can almost promise you, you're going to get hurt. Because that's what happens with love. That's what happens is that people who love open themselves up. They open their hearts up. They open their hearts up and they let themselves become one with other people, and then they get hurt. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I know that might sound contradictory and crazy, that love is supposed to hurt. But we live in a fallible world. We live in a world where people are still trying to figure themselves out. We live in a world where people are still trying to get on the boat of love, of understanding, of truth, of oneness. And they've got all of these religions, all of these multiple religions, and they're all preaching their own idea and their own thoughts and their own beliefs about God and about truth and about what is. But see, you already know. You already know it all because you were born of Holy Spirit. And you came into this existence as Holy Spirit. And you know that you are one with everything. And yes, you are going to get hurt because you are in a world of fallible people. A few years ago, I felt betrayed by a group of people I loved intensely and who I trusted completely. That decision was theirs, not mine. It was theirs to make. And and they didn't understand love. And so it was conditional for them. And incidentally, I wasn't a victim. I have my own accountability for that happening. Just like you have an accountability for when it happens to you. It had been coming for a long, long time. That betrayal had been coming for a long, long time. But I kept thinking, if I stay in love and keep sharing my love, they'll come around. Well, as Don Schlitt's great song, The Gambler, that Kenny Rogers sang, it said, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You can't count your money. While you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. You got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. See, I use this metaphor that I really like, and that's, I ask people, if a coyote comes into your backyard and your little cat is sitting on the porch, will the coyote eat your cat? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So can you trust the coyote? Absolutely, you can trust the coyote. You can trust the coyote to be a coyote. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're unable to be loving, I don't say turn your love off. Keep loving them with all your heart, but get yourself out of the way so they don't eat your kitten. They're coyotes. You don't have to be in that place to be loving, because true love is not conditional. God's love is not conditional. Regardless of what the Christian fanatics have preached, God cannot stop loving you just because you make what's called a sin, because God is love. And that's all God is. intelligence, energy that's pure, unconditional love. And everything created in time and space is made of love, including you, including the coyote. So then you ask, but how could there be then wars and cancer and poverty? If God's love, how could all of that be? And my answer is this. We're created with minds that can think and imagine. And as such, we're individuals, but we're also family. And when one of us harbors hatred or greed or prejudice or seeks to harm or has revenge in their hearts, it affects every single one of us because we're many individual trees, but we all share the same root system. So you know that there's pain going on. Don't put yourself in front of a bus that's coming down the road. Don't curse the bus. The bus is a good thing. It's carrying people, but don't get in front of it. Love and freedom, today's talk, love and freedom are at the core of every single thing we want. We want to be completely loved and we want to feel free to love completely as our true selves. So check it out. Does anyone want $1 million without love in their lives? How about a new home without any love, without a family, without anybody that loves you or allows you to love them? Or a trip to your dream spot, or better health, or a new relationship without love? That's not love. And those aren't dreams coming true. Because the result of those dreams that we want is to feel loved and to be allowed to love. We're not statues in a park. We're processed, we're flowing energy, we're flowing intelligence. And only love makes us real. What stands in our way of being love and of feeling love is the misunderstanding of who we are spiritually and of the love of our core beings, our souls. It's a misunderstanding of who we are. We are born into these bodies in this incarnation, and we look around and we see cars and houses and buses and trucks and trees and mountains and oceans and clouds and storms, and we say, yeah, this is real, this is the reality. But all of that stuff's made of space. 99.912s or 12 nines after that percent space. Everything's made of love. So can we today please just realize our true identities and discover the spiritual power of love? We're talking today about the doorway to love and freedom. The doorway to love is the doorway to freedom. Love is freedom. So now let's talk about freedom a little bit, and then we'll see how the two of them come together. People who are forced to work hard all day for very little pay will say freedom is escaping from such work. I've been there. When I first started working, I was working like 10 hours a day for $1 a day. I never worked harder or got more tired than I was. Those who are suffering from serious illnesses will say that freedom is being healthy. Prisoners will say freedom is the ability to go where they want, when they want. And there are those of us who are dominated by an inner voice, a dominating inner voice that demands how we live and how we see freedom. And freedom for us is the ability to live as we want, without that voice harassing us. So then for most people, freedom is a release from certain circumstances. The concept of freedom originated in ancient Greece. It was a concept that turned people from being passive objects into active participants and determiners of their own lives. Imagine what it was like for thousands of years before, when people did not see themselves as self-guided, but rather as hostages of their government, captives of their church, pawns of their families or fates. The only concept of self-worth then was what you might own. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that still feel that way. Well, then about 2,400 years ago, a bright new thinker named Socrates stated that human fate is not predetermined, and that each person determines his or her own future independently. That was a revolutionary announcement. Strangely enough, many people still don't get it. They still think that fate is their predicament, and it's predetermined, and that they can't independently create their own futures. Socrates himself didn't write any of this down. He didn't write anything that he thought. But Plato, who was his young student, came along after him, and he wrote everything that he learned from Socrates, and then became a great philosopher himself and was the teacher of Aristotle. Plato took Socrates' statement that a person determines his or her own future independently a step farther. He said that the degree of that freedom depends on a person's wisdom and knowledge. That the degree of freedom depends on a person's wisdom and knowledge. So today, here we are, learning from Socrates and Plato. Number one, knowing that we are independently creating our own futures. And two, gathering the knowledge and turning it into wisdom. Freedom, then, is living according to your truth. But let's remember, truth is not the same as belief. Belief is that green pond behind your house. It's the same today as it was yesterday and will be tomorrow. Truth is a river. It's always flowing, always expanding and evolving. So when I say freedom is a living according to your truth, I'm talking about your constantly evolving realization of what is. Here's a way to test whether you have freedom. Do you enjoy your work? Do you laugh often? How often do you play? Play, which is the lubricant of life. Play, which gives joy and meaning to our lives and uses our full brain capacity and signals to our body that we're free. So now let's get love and freedom into one basket, the same basket, shall we? Let's let love show the way. Let's let love show the way to freedom. Let's let that happen now.
Life as you knew it has fallen apart, and you've been left with a wounded heart. You feel so lost, don't know where to start, but love will show the way. You look for reasons and someone to blame, but that just leads to more hurt and shame. Forgiveness lights a healing flame if we let love show the way. Everything has changed, but love remains the same. If we let love show the way, if we let love show the way, if we let love show, we can all heal one day. There is no way to change the past. Love will help us move forward at last. If we let go, don't move too fast, and let love show the way. No one can live life perfectly. We make mistakes almost every day. We all need grace, come what may, to let love show the way. Everything has changed, but love remains the same. If we let love show the way, if we let love show the way, if we let love show the way, we can all heal one day. One day. We may slip off our pedestals. No one can stay there. We all fall. Let's hope our imperfections help you know that you don't have to get up on that pedestal. If we let love show the way, 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 we can all heal one day. One day, all heal one day. Let love show the way.
Let love show the way. Oh, that's so beautiful. From the mind of the marvelous Thich Nhat Hanh comes this statement: you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. In other words, we can't let our love corner or trap somebody. I'll add to this: you must feel loved in such a way that it does not tarnish your freedom to be you. There's clearly a duel that will surely poison any relationship, one controlling or feeling controlled by another. Isn't that true? When you're being controlled or you're needing to control other people, where's the love in that? Doesn't exist. Programming or feeling programmed by another person. Somebody constantly organizing your life so that you'll behave in the way that they need to behave. That's programming. That there's no love in that. In fact, it's contradictory to love. Love is accepting. But we'll get into that in just a minute. Let's ask ourselves this: does my relationship with someone depend on my ability to program and control them? Is that true for any of us? Or is it okay for them to be exactly who they are without our constant expectations of them being different? Because people aren't material objects. They're like growing plants. They take time to develop into their true selves. None of us on that process are perfect. So we need to be patient. The Pharisees, in an attempt to discredit Jesus, brought a woman charged with adultery to him and reminded him that under the Mosaic law, adultery was punishable by stoning. They hoped he'd excuse her so they could accuse him of disobeying the law. Well, Jesus thought for a moment, and then he said to them, "He is who without sin among you, let him cast the first stone at her." The Pharisees walked away. When we feel in the need to change someone, we might ask how we could change to become more accepting of them as they are. True love cannot exist by obligation. It must be freely given. The Greek language has many variations of the word love, where in the English language we're relegated to one word, love. And unfortunately, love has many aspects that can't be described by just that one word. But agape, which is the Greco-Christian term referring to unconditional love, is the love given to a person without them doing anything in return. C.S. Lewis uses agape in his book, The Four Loves, to describe what he believes is the highest level of love known to humanity. A selfless love that is passionately committed to the well-being of others. We know that as the love from Holy Spirit or the heart of Christ is pure love. However we define it, I'm sure in my heart that conditional love is not love at all, but it's bargaining. Our egos dictate our love just as they dictate the conditions of freedom. I have a favorite acronym for love that sets both lover and loved free. It's eros. For adults, it's eros, A-R-A-S. And for children, it's the reverse of that, S-A-R-A, Sarah. In either direction, those four words describe love. They describe agape, love given freely and without condition. Eros, acceptance, means I accept you exactly the way you are and exactly the way you are not. I'm not judging you. I let you be who you are, where you are, as you are. And I know that you are, wherever you are, however you are a perfect child of the universe. And I respect you. Oh my goodness, if I could know how many sleepless nights you've had, if I could know how many losses you had, how many times your heart's been broken, if I could know the many times when you've gone on, when all was lost, except that small voice which says, go on. If I could only know how you've swum those last 5 miles in cold, wet, stormy seas with no one helping you. If I could know that, I would be on my knees in front of you with respect. And affection, my affection for you is me affecting you. If I accept you and respect you, then I'm free to affect you with the self of who I am, to touch your shoulder as I pass your chair, to look into your eyes as I talk to you, to let you feel me affecting you, to get myself out of the way and be here for you. And lastly, to support you, to be completely in support of you, as you are, accepting, respecting, having affection for you, and supporting your dreams, supporting your mind, supporting where you are, how you are. And many times that means listening, being willing to really listen without interrupting, without I already have it all figured out, just listening to you, to support you. Acceptance, respect, affection, and support. It's easy to remember, A-R-A-S, Eros. It's easy to remember that. And I can promise you that every relationship in my life and in your life that's not working the way it's supposed to be working, there's a lack of one or more of those effects in play. Now for children, they're little guys. They need Sarah, the reverse of Eros. They need support first, and then affection, and then respect, and then acceptance. And that's how they'll grow up to be lovers, supporting that little one, finding out what he or she needs and being in support of them, letting them know that they're absolutely safe and that you've got their back. And then giving them your affection so they learn how to love, so they learn how to be affectionate, so they learn how to affect others. And to respect them, teach them to be respectful of themselves, teach them self-respect, and accept them exactly the way they were born, and don't try to make them different. Because love is energy, and all energy travels in frequencies, and all frequencies carry information. Did you know that? All frequencies carry information. And what that means is simply this: love is intelligent. Love cares what becomes of you. Because love knows that we're all interconnected. Love knows that we're all one being in multiple incarnations. Love is inherently compassionate and empathic. It's inherently compassionate and empathic. And it knows that the other is also oneself. Love itself can't be manipulated or restrained. Love must be free. And it can only come from a heart and a mind that are free. Love honors this freedom. It honors the freedom of each soul. And this is the true and natural nature of love. I know that I'm love, and I know that you're love. I know that today. We're free to love each other without blame or shame or judgment, because together we are the roots of the divine. Together we are the roots of the divine. I love you. I love you.
Such a mystery, how we repeat history. How did we get here again? It's up to you and me to turn it around. Together we can take back our world, take back our world again. All around the world, stories of corruption, stories of human greed and pain. War is not the answer, only love can conquer hate. When will we ever learn? We all want the same thing. We all have a dream that we can all be free. It's such a mystery, how we repeat history. How did we get here again? Well, it's up to you and me to turn it around. Together we can take back our world, take back our world again. We are all family, we all need to belong. We can help each other get along. Love is the answer. Love can do anything. With love, we all can change. 'Cause we all want the same thing. We all have a dream that we can all be free. It's such a mystery, how we repeat history. How did we get here again? It's up to you and me to turn it around. Together we can take back our world, take back our world, take back our world again. We need to take back our world. Together we can take back our world. 'Cause we have a dream. We want to be free. Together we can take back. Gonna stand up for love. Together we can take back, gonna take back, gonna take back. We have a dream. We're gonna take back our world.
Darlene and Bill, thank you. God, you're so beautiful. Your music is so right on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Every Sunday we announce that you can visit a prayer chaplain in a prayer room, and that chaplain will pray with you, and then you can return to one of the breakout rooms. I think that many of us don't understand about the prayer chaplains. I know for sure that I felt before I went to a prayer chaplain that what I was going to do is go somewhere and someone was going to do these kind of beseeching God on my behalf kind of prayers. When you go to a prayer chaplain, you're going to find something entirely different and surprising. There is an affirmation of who you are and what you're about that comes from pure spirit. These people are not only highly trained, they're deeply spiritual, and they enwrap you, or they wrap you in their love and let you feel the power and the presence of divine spirit in you. It's an amazing experience. So if you haven't done that, jump into a prayer chaplain sometime in one of these Sundays and see what happens for you. Thank you very much for giving me that moment.
Okay. Well, our first question actually comes from Brian and Dee. And the question is, can you live the life of love without first finding forgiveness?
Well, yes, of course you can. And the reason that you can is because love is constant. Love isn't dependent upon anything else. But that's the static love. That's the presence of love. That's love as the green pond behind your house. In order for love to be flowing, in order for it to be nurturing you and your soul, in order for it to be awakening you, you need to have forgiveness. And forgiveness is just another word for acceptance. With Eros, I was talking about acceptance, respect, affection, and support. Acceptance is simply forgiveness. It's just absolutely the same thing. But the thing of it is that when you feel love, when you're in love, when you're walking that path of love, when you completely are in acceptance and you're walking that path of love, what happens for you is something entirely different than anything we normally talk about with love. What happens is that there's an awakening in your soul about who you are eternally. That presence, that identity, that sense of self awakens. Something really magical happens for you. It isn't just, okay, well, once I was really angry with this guy and now I've forgiven him, so now I feel better. That's true, you'll feel better. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that when we get these obstacles out of our way, then we do what we came into this incarnation to do, which is to grow in wisdom and joy. And when I say grow, I mean expand exponentially, like really fast. A storm of light will happen in your heart. Thank you.
Our question next is from Anne, and you may have answered this question, but if you could maybe expand on this. Is love a personal thing or a more universal thing? If you could just share a little bit more on that.
Gosh, Anne, that's really a good question. And the answer is yes to both of them. It's a personal thing and a universal thing. The fact is that I always think of love as a river, and I think of life as a river, and I think of grace and as Holy Spirit as a river, because it's flowing and moving and changing all the time. And see, you can have your boat in that river, and you can put your anchor down, and you can sit against the current, and the current can go around you and that's still the current, and it's still the river, and you're still in the river, and you're still feeling the river. But to become one with love, I mean, that's that's the first part of your question. Is it universal? Is it all? Yes, it is universal and it's all. But to get into the flow of that, I mean, just to know that it's universal and all and that I'm a part of it, that's one thing. But to actually experience the marvelous connection and the acceleration and the exhilaration of love is to personally experience love. And you cannot, this is going to sound pretty strange, but you cannot experience someone loving you. You know, you just cannot. You can't experience love unless your love heart is open to giving love. And when you're giving love, then you can feel the love in return. But you cannot feel love if you're not loving. You cannot. You must open that. It's up to me to love you. That's why so often I say to people, I love you. Because it's for me. It's not for them, it's for me. I open the door as much as I can to giving love. And when that happens, then the universal love comes pouring into me. And I'm in the river as the river. Thank you, Anne.
Next one is from Anonymous. After continually giving love all my life, I find myself burned out. Love I give to colleagues, partners, family, etc. What can we do to lose the burnout from loving?
Oh man, that's just absolutely a beautiful question. That's a great question. But see, here's what happens, is that love by itself, love, true love, is nourishing, replenishing, freshening, rebuilding. Each time you're in that kind of love, you're being reborn constantly. And I understand, boy, do I ever understand it, because I've been there, about being burned out by loving. And what that is, caretaking. And it's taking care of everybody else. And that's not loving. That's not love. Like, you know, one of the most loving animals on planet Earth is a pet dog. One of the most loving animals, totally, completely forgiving, completely loving. But they don't do anything. They don't take care of anybody. What do? They just love you. That's all they do. So that's love. Now, washing someone's clothes and doing someone's dishes and listening to someone complaining and picking up the loose ends and constantly being, until after a while people begin to use you. And then you get burned out by what you think of as love has been caretaking, when it's only going in one direction and not in two directions. I understand totally what you're talking about as being burned out, but that's not love. It wasn't love that burned you out. It was a different thing that was going on. It was you having to be responsible for uplifting other people, constantly uplifting other people, when they weren't uplifting themselves, nor were they uplifting you. And of course you got burned out, and you should have gotten burned out, because nature says to you, this is not right. Don't do this anymore. This is not right. You're here for a more valuable and precious purpose than to wear yourself out giving to people who are not taking care of themselves, nor are they giving back. Love, just be love. Start with loving you. Start by giving you love, by giving you a treat. You like chocolate? Go get a really expensive piece of chocolate and sit by yourself and enjoy it. Or find somebody that doesn't want anything from you except your love and your laughter and your companionship, and go spend time with that person. I love you.
Here's another question from Anonymous. If science and spirituality move and breathe together, how does love fit into this equation?
I love that question, and it's a really wonderful metaphysical question. And here's the truth, and this is a little bit hard to wrap our head around sometimes, but there's a force in this universe, and you know, there's the weak force and the strong force and the gravitational force and all of those forces that are in physics. But something, like a lot of scientists believed for many years, that at the beginning of this universe there was a big bang, and all of matter was consolidated at a point smaller than the tip of a pin, and then it exploded and expanded out and went everywhere. Well, many scientists are now beginning to realize that there had to be something there before the Big Bang. Otherwise, where did that matter at the point of a pin come from? So that consciousness has always been there. And that consciousness is in the head of the pin, and it is in the explosion. And do you know what? If we took listen, this is important for this question. If we took all of the matter and all of the planets and all of the galaxies and all of the stars, all of the matter and all of the universe, all of it, and took all of the space out of it, it would be the size of a grain of dust, a speck of dust. There's only love. That force in the universe is love. So science is trying to find out, you know, they have to do an experiment, and then if it works out, and then something works out, and then that's a philosophy, and then they do it again and it works out, then it's a theology, or then it becomes a theory, and after a while they keep doing it again and again, and it keeps replacing itself, then it becomes a law. They're discovering truth. They're not making truth. They're discovering truth. The truth is that there is only one power in this universe. It's love, the omnipotent. Love. It's the power, it's the force. It's when you breathe in a breath, the molecules of oxygen go into the little alveoli sacs in your lungs and disperse into your blood system, and the carbon dioxide comes back out and goes back out in your breath. All of that miracle, the miracles that are going on all around us, it's all love. All of it's love. And if we get in touch with love, then we are as that miracle. So the science and spirituality, all of it together is just one thing. God is, and we are becoming. God is, and we are becoming.
Thank you, Bob. The next question comes from Brian. Bob, can you speak to us about the healing power of love?
Thank you. So disease is called dis-ease. And dis-ease is a lack of love. And I got to be very careful about this, because some people get cancer or get a disease, and they're gentle, sweet, good, loving people, and they die an early death because of the cancer or because of the disease. So I don't want to make the statement here that all disease and all illness is a lack of love. Boy, that would be really a big mistake. That just wouldn't be true at all. But we don't know all that we need to know about the universe. We don't know all that we need to know about the human body. I mean, you've heard say that we know more about outer space than we do about the oceans, our oceans. We know more about outer space than we do our human bodies. I could spend the next hour talking to you about the miracles of the human body. The human body is one of the most amazing things that ever happened. Our presence, our spiritual presence in the human body, dictates how the human body will act. Because the human body is just molecules, electrons, protons, neutrons, atoms. It's almost entirely space. So who we are in the body determines how the body will be. It determines what the size and shape of your body will be, and how your body will be in terms of its healing or a non-healing. Now, having said that, we didn't come here, all of us, to be born and to live to 120 years old with a big grin on our faces. That's not why we came here. We came here to grow in wisdom and joy. And you don't gain muscles without lifting. And you don't grow without heartaches, without obstacles to grow through and to remember who you are and remember who you are and remember who you are. And sometimes people don't maybe live as long in their bodies as we think they should. That's us thinking that they should. I remember when I was a little boy, about 8 years old, a cousin of mine died very soon after birth, and the little body was in a casket at the mortuary, and my mom and I went to see the body. And I remember looking down at this little baby in this little casket and feeling like I had to cry or be sad or something, but I didn't really feel anything. But so I kind of whimpered and sniffled a little bit. Mom said, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "Well, poor little guy didn't even get a chance to live his life." And she said, "What are you talking about? He lived his life." And I said, "Yeah, but he died when he was a baby." She said, "That was his life. He lived his entire life. You can't judge how long his life was supposed to be. That was his life." So sometimes we get sick, sometimes we have pains, and sometimes we have arthritis, or we have stenosis in our spine, or other bothersome kinds of things, diabetes or whatever. And that's perhaps something that we need to carry and grow through so that we can show our love is greater than that. The challenges are supposed to happen to us, and we're supposed to rise above them. I'm sure that there's parts of that question that are left unanswered, and there's just that we don't know everything, and I certainly don't know everything. Thank you.
Here's a question from Randy. What practices would you recommend to heighten our awareness of when we are reacting from ego rather than responding from love? And are there any shortcuts to help us to return to love?
Here's the thing. When I'm feeling irritated, let me use the word irritated. Could be anxious, or could be mad, or could be a lot of other. But when I'm feeling irritated with myself or with anything else or anyone else, then that means that I'm out of love. It is the way it is. It is the way. No matter what's going on, it is the way it is, isn't it? Isn't it the way it is? Of course, it is the way it is. And if it's the way it is, then it is the way. God, the great, the powerful, great Spirit, Holy Spirit, creator of all, is in the process of creating. God didn't create the world and everything in 6 days and then took a day off, smoked his pipe and sat on a rock. Everything's in the process of being created at all times. Everything is motion, everything is happening. And as I move through that as process, and I fall out of the flow, if I get out of harmony with the tune that God's singing, if I get out of harmony with that, then I feel dis-ease, and I feel angry, and I feel mad, or I feel disgusted, or I feel hurt, or I feel something. That's because I'm not in tune. It's because I'm not flowing with love. So what can I do to make sure that my ego doesn't keep me out of love? I need to keep a very close watch on that thing called ego. Our egos are beautiful things. Don't ever let anybody think that I'm saying egos are bad. Egos keep us sane. Egos keep us balanced. Egos are wonderful things, but egos are our tools, not our masters. We're supposed to be using our egos and growing our egos, constantly growing our egos. So if somebody says to me, "Bob, you are dead wrong," then instead of going, "I am not wrong," And what I need to do is to go, wow, maybe I am. Maybe I am. Let me look at that. Let me see if there's another truth that's greater than the one I've been focused on. So constantly watching my reactions, watching my ego reactions. And Randy, you give me this question, and you do this all the time. I watch you do it all the time. You're constantly watching your ego. You're constantly watching your reactions, constantly monitoring those. But I think that the most important thing is meditation and affirmation. And if I'm doing the affirmation that says, I am right here, right now, and I am a good and worthy person, exactly the way I am, right here, right now. If I know that, and I'm saying that affirmation, I'm right here, right now, and I am a good and worthy person, I'm a good and worthy man. If I'm saying that 100 times a day, my ego's got to take back seat. It gets out of the driver's seat and it gets in the back of the car. And my heart and my love are now driving. Thank you.
I have a question here from Lucelena, and she says, does love have limits and boundaries? And if so, where is that applicable?
Yes, most definitely love has limits and boundaries. Yes, 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 yes. When you were 4 years old, you probably wore a size 4 shoe. And when you were 18 years old, you had to wear a bigger shoe. So yes, that shoe had its limits and boundaries. So you kept putting on a bigger and bigger and bigger shoe. And our love has boundaries and limits because we limit it. We limit it by our ego, by our belief systems, which is another word for ego. We are all living in our belief systems. And listen to me, belief systems are not true. They're not true. They're viewpoints of reality. They're opinions of reality. They're not reality. And the ego lives in those opinions and beliefs. And within that, love has limits and love has boundaries. But if I am able to open my heart wider, if I'm able to love the unlovable, when Jesus, great God, what a great master, what a great teacher he was for us. He'd come upon a leper, and people would get up, stay away from him, stinks, and he's got sores all over him, and he's crawling on the ground, and Jesus would love him, and he would be healed. And he didn't have a limits to his love. So the boundaries and limits to love are ours. We put those boundaries and limits on. And the more we open that, two things happen. One, the more we feel ourselves being isolated by some people who we thought were friends because they don't understand us anymore. And secondly, we feel more joy, more rapture, more excitement with life than we ever felt before. It's a path worth walking.
Bob, here's a question. How can our individual love help generations of Canadian residential school survivors heal grief and trauma?
That's a really wonderful question. In Canada, we have such a huge pain, such a thorn in our hearts right now over the residential schools and what we're learning about what happened there. As I said in my talk, in order to be able to heal, we have to forgive. And yes, it was the Catholic Church, and yes, it was the nuns and the priests and the brothers, and yes, some terrible, terrible things happened, but it happened. It is the way it is. It is the way. And unless we get in line with the way it is, we can't change anything. The forward flow of this energy, of us learning about these atrocious things that happened, us learning about that, stabs us in the heart, brings us to our knees, We can't even imagine the pain that those kids went through living in those schools. We can't even imagine it. We can't even imagine what their parents and grandparents are feeling now, what the survivors who survived those schools are feeling now. But they and we must first accept what is. Otherwise, we can't change it. Otherwise, we keep bringing that same thing together forward. We can't keep revisiting Nazism or communism or totalitarianism or religion in its most disgraceful form. We can't keep bringing that back up. We have to forgive. We have to forgive. We have to accept what is, and then from there, make damn sure that it doesn't happen again, and be personally accountable to make damn sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
And I have a very interesting question here. It says, if you are being unconditionally loving, how would you ever move away from a coyote?
Oh, see, the thing of it is that a coyote is a coyote. Coyotes eat cats. Coyotes eat cats. So you have to know that coyote is going to eat your cat. So you have a friend, maybe a husband or a father or spouse or wife or mother or somebody, maybe who's a drug addict or an alcoholic or who's bipolar and who goes into screaming fits and it becomes very abusive. If being accepting means being one with what is. This is what's true about this. This person is in a sense is a coyote. I don't mean disparage them. I don't mean damn them. I don't mean shoot them or throw them under the bus. I don't mean that. I mean, you know that they're going to hurt you. You've seen it again and again and again. Loving them does not necessitate you getting back in front of them again. Protect yourself. Continue to love them, but do not give them the ability to destroy you, to hurt you. And yes, I got to tell you about coyotes. I love coyotes. I really love those guys. I love them. I love their voices. I love the way they hunt. I love them, watching them hunt in the snow. I love them. I just love them. I'm not putting my cat out when there's coyote around. Thank you.
And Bob, we have one last question here. How can we learn to trust love fully? How can we develop the courage under pressure to choose love rather than just will and force?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have to be kind of like I said, one of the most loving animals in the world is your pet dog. We have to learn to be more like the dog. We have to wag our tails more often. We have to be willing. We have to be willing to be love. See, here's what happens. Boy, I grew up in this. I grew up right in the midst of this stuff, and I was as much at fault as anyone in my family or anyone that I knew. And that's that there are people that you just have this little thing for. That guy, I tell you, yeah, it's all right. I mean, he's in my family and I love him, but man, I'm telling you, I'd sure like to kick his butt. Man, I'll tell you. So that's not love. That's not love. Love is acceptance, respect, affection, and support. Love is eros, acceptance, respect, affection, and support. And I have to practice that as I have practiced being judgmental, as I have practiced being irritated, as I have practiced being judgmental. I need to practice being accepting, respecting, affecting, and supporting. It takes practice. And as you practice, write those words, write it on your mirror so you see it every day, ARAS. As you practice that, especially with people that are the most problematic, you'll see a change in your life. And here's something that happens so often. It's really, really wonderful, is that If somebody in your life is not accepting you, is rejecting you, and you feel rejected, and you completely accept them in your mind, not just out loud and by your actions, but in your mind, you completely accept them exactly the way they are and exactly the way they are not. And they're being ornery now. They're being ornery and they're being kind of vicious. And you keep your eyes open. You don't squint. You keep your eyes open and you look with love into them. And you accept them being the way they are, however they are being. That's the way it is. The way it is the way. That's the way they're being. And I just going to accept that's the way it is right now. I'm not going to let them hurt me, but I'm not going to get in the ring and fight with them. And I let that flow through me. What oftentimes happens, in fact, more than 90% of the time happens, is that you find that person starts accepting you exactly the way you are. You find that IRE inside of them relaxing and then becoming more available. And the more you respect them, the more they tend to respect you. And the more affection you give them, the more affection they tend to give you. And the more you support them, the more they tend to support you. It's hard for people to resist that. I can tell you it's hard for them to resist that. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Bob, and we appreciate all your perspectives and everything you share with us, and we love and appreciate you.
Thank you.
And of course, we have our breakout rooms and prayers with the chaplains in the private rooms coming right up. But now let's join Reverend Bob in saying our prayer for protection.
I want you to know that this prayer was written during, I believe it was the First World War, and it was written because we at Unity wanted people in the trenches and on the front lines to know that they were being blessed and held by God. So read this with me. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us right here, right now. And the presence of God watches over us. And wherever we are, God is, and all is well.